Hello, you noble people. My name is Noble, and welcome to the Noble Way of Cloak and Dagger. I'm very excited to do this. This is a series that I'm going to be doing with Marvel Rivals. I did try and do this with Apex, but it didn't really work out because it's a kind of a different game. However, I'm very excited to start that. Cloak and Dagger was my favorite hero that got announced, and if new future heroes catch my eye, I will talk about them. I don't know who to do after Cloak and Dagger, so if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment down below and make sure to like the video if you enjoy this. I intend to do a lot more Marvel Rivals content, and doing guides and learning the ins and outs of characters is something that I really like to know. I've tried to learn some harder heroes, but it's kind of hard with the lag that I've been having. You can actually see in the screen that I have to have the lag shown so I can see what my ping is at currently. But I had really fun with Cloak and Dagger. They're definitely my favorite heroes so far, so without further ado, let's hop in to the noble way of Cloak and Dagger. So before we get into the actual gameplay of Marvel Rivals, what is the actual backstory between these two? First, let's actually start off with Cloak. Cloak's real name is Tyrone Johnson. He is a mutant, kind of. Some of the continuities are different for each team in Marvel, and since Cloak and Dagger are a little bit of an unknown hero, sometimes they are considered to be mutants, such as X-Men. However, sometimes it is described that they get powers from experimental drugs that were used on them. Cloak's powers are the Dark Force, allowing him to basically be a portal into the Dark Force dimension, allowing him to teleport at will, become intangible, and use tendrils of the darkness to attack his enemies. Dagger, otherwise known as Tandy Bowen, is also influenced by a different force called the Light Force. This allows her to create items via Light Force, primarily the Light Force daggers. These daggers also have no surface tension, meaning they can reflect and bounce off stuff you can actually see happen in game. She as well can discharge this to be invisible or to do a big AoE attack. The light also allows her to heal. However, with the Dark Force and Light Force, this creates a yin and yang. While Cloak can't really survive without Dagger, and Dagger can't survive without Cloak, as too much of either one will cause them to be fatal and cause them to pretty much die and implode on themselves if they don't rely on each other's powers for safety. Now let's actually get into the characters and gameplay and their abilities. First off, starting with Dagger. Dagger's first ability is her Light Force Dagger. This will heal and damage allies and enemies alike. The healing output is 10 and the damage is 15. These are also lock-on, allowing you to actually deal with flying characters and heal your flying teammates. While the healing and damage isn't a lot, being able to consistently hit your shots is always going to be a good thing in a game where people are going to be moving around a lot. Her next ability is Dagger Storm, creating a bubble area that will heal for 55 healing per second and will last for 6 seconds. This is great to not only heal your allies a lot and prevent them from dying, as most DPS can't out damage it, but it's also a really good self heal, as your abilities can't heal you yourself. Having this and putting it on yourself will allow any teammates that were near you and yourself to fully heal and get back into the fight. Her last ability is Light Force Veil. This allows her to cast a veil that will heal allies for 54 health, but it will as well give a 15% healing boost to any healing afterward. This pairs very well with not only your primary, but with your bubble, allowing allies to be exponentially healed drastically. Pairing this with a tank that is really low allows you to save much tanks from diving in too far. I've been able to save a lot of Venoms and Hulks if they dive in too far into the back line because of the extra healing output. Now, while I did say that was her last ability, she technically has one more that I don't really necessarily consider an ability. It more is a key feature of her kit, allowing to swap to Cloak. This is also an ability for Cloak, allowing him to swap to Dagger, as this is a key part of their kit, seamlessly allowing to transitions between both heroes, allowing you to use both sides of their kit and do DPS or to do healing. Cloak's first ability is his Dark Force Cloak, allowing him to do 75 damage per second within a 20-meter radius. This does not have any fall off, it just stops working after the certain duration. This does consistent damage, however, I wouldn't recommend trying to solo any tanks or higher level DPS. It just mainly allows you to put up some of a fight if people do try and dive you like a Spider-Man. Cloak's next ability, Terror Cape, is much like Dagger's Light Veil ability, except inversed, dealing 55 damage and giving a damage boost of 20% upon enemies hit by it. However, it also has a bonus feature of blinding the enemies for 1.5 seconds, meaning they won't be able to see this. This will also mess up some ults and targeting, as Punishers and Star-Lords who get hit by this will actually be blinded, meaning aiming will actually become a problem for them for a little bit. Cloak's next ability, Dark Teleportation, makes himself intangible and allows him to fly for a brief duration. This also allows allies who are next to you in a 10-meter radius to also become intangible. This is his invulnerability ability and allows him to provide support. You can also dodge decently big ultimates with this ability, meaning that saving this ability for downtime or when you get dived is always going to be a nice option. Next up is their ult, Eternal Bond. Cloaking 3 dashes of this mystic thing on the terrain allows to heal your allies and damage your enemies. The damage is only 30 per second, while the healing is 220. This will each dash will last for 5 seconds, meaning the last one will last longer than the first one. This is really good for coating a point, allowing your enemies to not really push without the risk of doing damage, and allowing your teammates pretty much to have an immortality field of some sorts, as it's very hard to out damage the healing that this ult provides unless you're using another ult. This is also good to know that it also does stack on top of each other if you dash in the same direction. Meaning if you dash back and forth, this will actually do a decent amount of healing and damage if someone were to walk into it. Now that we have talked about the abilities of the character, let me give you some tips and tricks of how to use this character more effectively. The biggest one is cooldown management. You can actually see in this corner of the screen your cooldowns for Cloak or Dagger, depending on which one you are, meaning that if you use abilities such as invulnerability or your blindness on Cloak, you know when you will have them back and be able to switch. People that don't pay attention to this can very easily die, as they can't keep track of their best ability being able to go invulnerable with Cloak. Make sure you keep on this and pay attention to when your cooldowns are available. Make sure to recognize when you have a Moon Knight team up. Moon Knight team up gives him an ability where he goes invincible, but since Cloak and Dagger are the anchor of that ability, that grants them a 15% healing bonus. This applies across the board, meaning the 10 healing per damage with your normal daggers actually gets a little bit much needed boost. This applies to all healing items that you do have, meaning that you can actually solo carry on a support character, allowing you to get upwards of 11,000 healing in one game if you play them correctly. Understanding when to swap to Cloak. As default, you will always be by Dagger, and you should usually stay Dagger. While Cloak does have high DPS and an ability that makes him invulnerable, you need to understand when to use it to block off ults. Usually staying on Dagger will allow you to consistently get healing output for your team that might be much needed, allowing such as characters as Scarlet Witch to ult characters like Bucky to be able to ult consistently and get his again over. And you need to understand when to use the abilities effectively. Dagger, while yes, her damage isn't high, she has a lot more survivability than Cloak would because he doesn't have that self-healing. The next tip I want to get is point stalling. Cloak and Dagger are especially good at point stalling with their ult. Popping ult on point forces enemies to get off the point while allowing your allies to pretty much become invulnerable when your ultimate is on the point. While it does dissipate pretty fast, it might be enough to make some enemies who are low enough to disengage and allow allies who are low to engage, allowing you to win points and even win games in competitive. If you listen to all of these tips and tricks and follow this guide, I think you're going to have great success with this character. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what character you want to see next. I've had a lot of fun making this, but other than that, stay noble. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!